Okay, so the fourth game.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll be somewhat less detailed with this one. I once again started with G4, C4, but after G6 I sort of corrected my mistake of yesterday and went D4, knight F6, transposing to normal positions. And this sideline, which was popularized by Aleksander maybe a year and a bit ago, it's nothing special, but it leads to reasonably fresh positions.
Doesn't allow Grunfeld.
Grunfeld. If you want to play the Grunfeld type positions after castles bishop e2, you can still play d5, of course, but white gets some additional options because the knight is still on b1, and the positions are unusual. Let's put it like this. Not your normal Grunfeld positions here. So Boris went c5, which I think currently is the main reply to this setup. d5, d6, knight c3, e6, castles. Sometimes they start with knight d2, but it doesn't really make much of a difference. Rook e8, and basically what we get here is the Benoni. I had a conversation actually on this subject with Grishuk, and he complained that people always say that it's a Benoni with a tempo down. It can be if I play 3-4 here. But on many occasions, white keeps the pawn on e3. So it's not exactly a Benoni, a tempo down. It's a Benoni with a pawn on e3. So knight d2, knight a6. And this actually, we're still following a game between Japhet and Grishuk himself. He played this with black. And I tried to slightly improve on that game by taking on e6 immediately. So that in the game, I think it went e4, knight c7, and white took on a6, maybe after rook e1, rook b8, white took on a6, and black took with a knight. And I didn't want to allow black to take on a6 with the knight, because then the knight comes to d4 straight away. And I took on a6 here and played e4. And if you give me two moves here, my position will be excellent. But unfortunately, chess doesn't really work like that. I mean, it's not as silly as it might look, because I just said that it's not a tempo down, and now I'm playing e3, e4, obviously giving black this tempo. But if I get even, let's say, if you imagine this position with a pawn on h3, I think white could have some reasonable expectations of a small advantage. But the pawn is not on h3, which will be important later on. Knight b4 is. What was, I thought knight d7 was also.
Yeah, also possible, but I think it's more natural to play knight b4.
Yeah, but the thing about knight d7 is that I thought, bishop takes c3 is actually a very serious option against many moves here. So it's not clear what I should do. I was slightly worried about this. But knight b4, yeah, as Boris is saying, knight b4 is of course the most natural move in the position, planning to bring it back to c6 and then to d4. Which is something I, need to work against. And in this position, I went bishop f4, which was a slight miscalculation. And I think if I want to, play a complicated game, with a lot of pieces on the board, I need to play bishop e3 here. But after knight e5, knight d2, this is the position I was talking about when I said I need a pawn on h3, because here black will play knight fg4, bishop f4, and either maybe immediate f5 or maybe even g5 and f5. Some kind of setup involving this break, and black is obviously quite comfortable here. There's no suggestion white is better here at all. It's playable, but black is fine. But I was pinning my hopes on bishop f4, but this, as I said, this was a bit of a miscalculation, because in this position, for some reason, it took me a very, very long time to realize that apart from knight h5, which allows queen takes d6, black also has knight d5. And here I more or less have to give up the queen, because if I
was worried for like 5 minutes. I was afraid of queen g7. I thought white having a very good position.
Yeah, it would have been a more fun game to watch had I done this, but I couldn't really bring myself to believe this was any good. I actually considered it for a while, because I realized that everything else is basically me fighting for, trying to comfortably equalize. And I'm not saying I'm much worse, but I realized that I will not be fighting for any kind of advantage. But here, takes, and c takes d5. Two approaches are possible. I don't know what you were.
Queen f6.
maybe 3 approaches are possible, because I thought you can you can even give up on this pawn immediately. Play like this, Queen B6, forcing the bishop to A3, and then something like Rook C8. Planning.
Well,
to
I
maybe
played it with white, similar position against Jabava. Maybe I had one more pawn.
Yeah, but
I won
he
very
was much.
comfortably.
He was. I think you had a lot bigger advantage in development there.
Yeah. Here, Queen F5 maybe is right.
But yeah, Queen F6.
My intention was Queen F6.
Yeah, this actually makes.
Bishop E3, Bishop D7,
Something
Rook
like-
A1,
Oh yeah, maybe.
A1, and probably Queen H4. No, I like Queen H4 and F6. I thought I would go for F6. Bishop D4, F6. F4, more or less, and Rook C8. That was my intention.
Yeah, that looks very reasonable. And as I said, I did consider it for a while because I wasn't really too impressed with the option I finally settled on. But somehow I couldn't really believe I was fighting for any kind of advantage here. I think I'm trying to equalize. Maybe I will equalize here, something like Bishop D3, and it's very, very difficult for Black to do anything. But it's a queen. It's whatever happens, Black is a queen up here, and I think White is trying to hold here. And also, I slightly misunderstood the position I got in the game, because I felt I spent a bit of time here, and I thought what I'm doing is just equalizing on the spot, when in fact I'm suffering quite seriously there. Had I realized that, I probably would have gone for that, because it's a more fun way to try and make a draw compared to what I did. Here, A6 is also
A6, Queen F6.
yeah. There are many moves here. If A6, I thought I can take on B5. That was my.
I think you have to.
Yeah, and
don't have much
there's a
chance.
very long line starting with takes.
Yeah.
Take on B7. And if bishop c4,
Bishop C6.
yeah, I can play bishop c6 precisely, bishop f1, bishop e8.
I thought King F1 is good enough.
Maybe, but I can even take on e8, I thought. There's nothing wrong with this, queen e8, queen f1, queen e4, and I thought queen c1. And
So you were planning all this, and
well, this is what I was.
it's a long line.
Yeah, it's a long line, but there are not that many pieces on the board, so I was reasonably comfortable that I was not blundering much. And I think it should be a draw. And Queen f6 is also, of course, very possible.
G3, I think you play.
And now I have
Knight C7.
ideas of knight c7, and also, Black's piece is also slightly
Hanging.
yeah. And for instance, if knight c5, I thought I just take on d6, and after rook e7, I can play b4, knight d3, queen d3, and this knight on d6 actually will be very well protected once I play c5. But what Boris did, I mean, it looks like the game is going to be completely equal, but I'm always somehow one tempo short. If I could play bishop f4 and rook e1, I think I'm perfectly fine, or bishop f4 and queen g2. But with every move, Black is attacking some of my one of my pieces, and I couldn't somehow make it work at all. Queen d2, bishop e4. Now I don't know. Maybe I should play g3, but I mean it's such a strange move to make when the bishops are not exchanged yet. The bishop might go back, and I might regret it quite seriously. So, and bishop g3, for a second I thought I was okay, but then Boris played queen c6, which is a very strong move. And here I realized that I'm just not in time. Because the g2 pawn is hanging, I can't play f3 because takes, rook e3 almost wins. So I have to take, and this is precisely what I didn't need. I had to relinquish my blockade on the d file, and also Black is already ready to double on the e file. So Black is quite seriously better here. It's not a small problem. It's a very serious problem. In the end, I went f3, rook e6, and rook
e3 didn't work. Yeah? I want to point out rook e3, bishop f4, queen c4, and rook c1.
Yeah, this I think should be
intermediate move.
Yeah,
because if you take on e3,
no,
you're in trouble.
Yeah,
but rook c1.
Immediately taking on e3 is not advisable.
No, here rook e2. Rook c1. That's why you have to attack from f4. Here you're in trouble. But you have to attack with from f4.
Yeah, that's a big difference because now rook e2 is impossible because I take on c4. Yeah, that's very true. But
because I pinned my hopes for a while, but
the thing is, even after rook e6, rook c1, I think Boris just made the most obvious move in the position too fast here. Had he paused to think for a bit, he would realize that after rook d8, my troubles are only just beginning here because I can't really stop d3. My problem is, once again, if I could play bishop f2, queen d3 here, I'd be fine, or even, something like that. But queen d3 still runs into rook e3, and I thought I have to play rook e1. But now, black has a choice of ways of to get pretty much the same position. For instance, rook e1. Whoops, sorry, rook e1 doesn't work. Bishop e1 and d3. White plays bishop f2, and then white plays up b3. And winning this position will take a while. And in fact, I'm not entirely convinced it's completely winning. But, black will be, enjoying himself forever here.
maybe not so much. Rook e1 and you protect.
Yeah, that was why I went for this. I realized that, I will have to allow d3. But, once I play b3, I have some kind of a blockade going, and I want to play rook e1 and maybe rook e4, h3, put the king on f1, and just wait forever.
Yeah.
And as I said, I'm not even entirely convinced I'm lost here. But of course I'm worse, and this wasn't going to be much fun. But instead, Boris went rook a8, and here it's a hugely improved version of everything for me because I'm in time to start trading pieces. And I think here I'm close to holding this already because I couldn't really see what black can do because rook e3, obviously I will play bishop f2. And in general, it's not, there aren't any obvious ideas how to make much progress. Boris decided to change the structure, but which I also thought that maybe this is the best choice for black.
Isn't it a slight advantage for Boris right now? Slight.
Slight, of
Yes,
course, of
yes.
course.
This is still not equal, but compared to what I had, let's say 3 moves ago.
So Boris, why did you move to exchange all the pawns?
I didn't say how to advance. Here I didn't have much time. I played rook e8, the natural move too quickly. And then here there is no way to progress because if I don't do, there is no way to improve position because white would play bishop f2, b3, etc. So I thought time has come to keep it. I thought I have a reasonable chance because of the weak pawns. Let's say if I would exchange bishops, position would become pretty unpleasant.
Yeah, that was one
because weak pawns, a relatively weak king.
Yep.
White king is because of f3 weakening. White king is undoubtedly.
This is why I spent something like 5 minutes here because I realized that the game is far from over, and if I'm not precise, if I do something like let's say h3 rook d8, if I play queen e2 and black plays bishop d4,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
this is going to be a lot of suffering because the c4 pawn is perpetually weak, and black's king is much safer than white's king, and might be holdable. I'm not saying, once again, I'm not claiming this is lost, but this is
Not fun.
Yeah,
like
not fun at all.
Definitely bigger advantage than in queen ending in the first game.
Yeah, and my initial idea was to play rook b5, but unfortunately after rook d8, once again, I have no comfortable way of proceeding from here, because after rook d5, I think this endgame might actually be lost, because you start with bishop e5 straight away. It's very important not to allow bishop g3, because if king f8, I think I play bishop g3 and I'm in time to run to the center.
But what's the problem with
But
bishop
after bishop e5,
Okay, king e2. King d3.
I thought at some point you might take.
Okay, h3. Play h3. Still in time. King e7, king d3.
I just miscounted the tempi, maybe. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm just in time here. Then maybe it was better to play maybe this than what I played.
No,
although what I played is also it's also probably okay. I finally settled on h3, rook d8, and not a passive move like queen e2, but an attempt to immediately create some counterplay by playing queen a3.
Here you, Boris, could have played queen d7.
No, but
yeah, but c5 already.
But then c5. No, but then-
Already,
then-
when white would get rid of this weak pawn, I have no
the moment,
hopes
yeah,
whatsoever.
the moment I play c5, I breathe out and I feel like, you know, my work here is almost done because then I should be holding. No, the critical move was, apart from what Boris did, was rook d7, because if c5, you can play something like bishop b7. But I can start with rook e1, creating a somewhat unpleasant threat of mate in 2. And if, let's say, h5, I can actually maybe play c5 here, because after bishop b7, I can take and take on b6, and I'm doing very well here. So rook e1, and if black makes some move, I can maybe play rook e4. But this was a tricky possibility. Also, black could start with rook d2.
You take?
And I was slightly worried about this for a second.
No, but
I think it's important to give a check first. And then I can play king g3. I thought this might actually be important.
Queen e6?
Rook b5 maybe.
Oh,
Queen e1. Because otherwise, I think it's a serious attempt. Because
No, queen e6, f4 simply.
Yeah. Because if I take and play king g3 immediately, I don't know. This looked
f4?
yeah,
What's
but
the problem?
maybe I
What's
was
the
getting
problem?
I was getting too scared for no
You're
reason.
winning, yeah?
Maybe I'm winning, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I was just going completely crazy. I'm sorry about this. But it seemed to me like, you know, I'm not the most optimistic of chess players. I tend to think I'm in trouble pretty much throughout the game. Almost always with good reason, but maybe not here. And here I'm holding because I'm in time to take on b6, and in this position, if black plays rook d2, I can play, I mean, I think both rook f1 and rook e1 are fine. But an important thing is that after bishop d4, apart from queen d8, apart from checking, I mean, even if you force me to do this, it's still a draw. So there really is no way for black to make progress here. So Boris took on a2, and we agreed to draw. So once again, I'm definitely the luckier of the two participants. Seems to be a recurring theme.
Okay, so tomorrow, day of rest, and then we continue with game 5 on Wednesday morning.
Sure.
Wednesday 2 p.m.
Afternoon, yeah.
Okay, thank you.